Hello, everyone, and welcome to the OLIFT podcast, where we discuss everything about Olympic weightlifting. My name is Anton Jefferson.
And I'm JP Nicoletta, and today we're going to banter a little bit, Anton. I think we should have a little debate about something that I've seen going on probably for a year or two now. I think it's been a discussion point, but it's gotten a little bit hotter with the AO series and the classification of that meet and the lifters who get there. And it got me thinking about a lot of stuff. And I see some people who love the AO series. I see some people who hate the AO series and all points in between. But the question that we can start with, right, is do you think the American Open series is a national competition? And if so, do the people who qualify for the American Open series, either as a youth, junior, or masters, because there are different qualification totals for all groups, are they national athletes? Can you call yourself a national lifter for going to an AO series event? Because there's a full gamut of opinion on this. So I'll throw that out there for you to just start with on a high level. I mean, what do you think of it?
Does anybody else, any other weightlifting nation conduct themselves in this manner, or do they have a caliber meet to grab hold of the general public?
No idea. And does anybody else hold meets that are frankly this big? I don't think so.
Depends on the type of country it is. And so for us, we're a capitalist nation.
You're going a little too big on me, Anton.
I know, but I just
into capitalism.
I just feel as though being a capitalist nation, in God we trust, but the money came before that. And so we enjoy big competitions, nonstop things going on. Because the greatest thing about these premier events that USAW has been doing is using multiple platforms. And that's helped us watch weightlifting in a way more exciting way. Tell you what, like watching two platforms go at once, like synchronized, like not, at the same time, but like.
We've even seen 3 and 4.
Yeah. That's fantastic. That's how you make weightlifting interesting. A formal sport. That's how you look at fencing. Do you watch one competition? No, there are like 8 guys on the floor, sectioned off in twos, and they're going at it. And then it's like, tournament style. Capitalist in me thinks that it's fantastic for making weightlifting a spectator sport.
All right, I'll summarize that, I think, a little differently, but along your lines in terms of you'll play the good old American bigger is better game with that, right? If you look at so far, 2 AO series have happened at the time we're recording this, right? And both of them have had huge attendance.
Yes.
So
now, would you call that attendance success like I would?
How do you not? I mean, like, it's obvious that the market likes it.
Yes.
And the market is signing up for it in mass. And we haven't yet done the third one, but the start list is there. The registration hasn't closed. If you want to go look at it, it's not exactly going to be a small meet either.
How many do we have? At least 700 every one, right?
I don't have the number off the top of my head,
okay,
but it was big. And even if the Michigan one isn't as big as the prior 2, it's going to be several hundred people. It's going to be a big meet, right? So I think we can agree that people like it. They're going to it, and it's hard to not enjoy that aspect of it, right? But I know coaches who are well established that say, you know what, I'm not going to this thing. I'm not bringing people there. It's not really a national meet.
I mean, I understand the notion of purist mindset. We often classify ourselves as bridge athletes, where we have a coach who's brought us up in the purist era, and we've lived through, the CrossFit friendly times.
You mean you and I specifically?
Yes.
Yeah.
And so we understand both sides. And so I think that's a real issue for older coaches, is to understand that things have to change. And if you don't change and ride the wave a little bit, you're going to be left behind completely. Like, nobody's going to know. You can't market athletes anymore with we travel around the world, you can, around the nation, and go to the skate park for nationals in 2013. Like, you can't, you can't really sell that to kids anymore. And so how do you build a team? How do you build a sport if you aren't going along with the times, if you aren't talking to people?
But again, going back to what people are getting and what they're buying, they're enjoying an experience that the American Open Series provides,
Yes.
right? So
Yes.
it's an
It's a
opportunity to lift on a big stage. It's
Yeah.
webcasted. It's drug tested.
It
It's
prepares me for
you have
bigger
national
national meets
referees
as well.
there. It is in a way a gateway to something bigger, as it should be, right? So that's the intent. But for me, I sort of compare the American Open Series style of competition. What it is, in my mind, it equates more to, say, like an Arnold event than it does to, say, a Nationals. All right. And then behind that, think about what you just mentioned in there, the idea of classifying. Forget about classifying the meet for a second. What about classifying the individuals who go?
Well, we already have a classification system for those people, and we can say,
Well, we don't have actual stratification for 1, 2, 3, anything like that. Like I've seen.
I mean,
things
I'm
like,
saying
you know,
the Soviet system where they categorize this, and you meet any Russian.
all right, so that
they
answers
tell
your question.
you-
The Soviets
yeah,
have a
they tell you
category.
I'm a master of sport. Like that means something. Like across the whole country, that means something.
Is having a classification bad?
Is having a classification bad? No. So I already know where everybody lies on the spectrum. I mean, we have Sinclair. We can go there if somebody wants to say, are there better lifting than me, et cetera. So we have that. We have these tools that are objective. We're just using this meat. You can call it what you want. It doesn't really matter. Do I look at them as national caliber lifters? No, because
Why?
at
Because
at a senior national, junior national event, senior nationals, there is an expectation of the highest quality because of the qualification totals. So there
It's
has
higher.
to be some qualification if you had to qualify, right? So there is a system
You had to qualify for
And
this.
so you qualify for this one. I mean, it's a way, you said it earlier, it's a gateway to something bigger.
part of what a lot of people do is in the debate over this, you get hung up over the idea of whether or not somebody calls themselves something and whether or not somebody on one side of the fence thinks that it's cool and somebody on the other side of the fence
Well,
thinks that it's
we were having this conversation
garbage.
yesterday in the gym.
Nonsense.
One of my lifters, he got 13th at national universities, and let's be honest here, how we look at national universities compared to the rest of the national meets. But we'll come back.
I think National Universities kind of lives
yeah.
in the same stratosphere
yeah.
of the
I mean,
AO
it's-
series,
it's-
right? And that's not an insult. It sort of plays there.
And that's the expectation or understanding of it. And so anyway, the joke in the gym was, he was like, I tell my friends all the time who don't understand weightlifting that I got 13th place, and they're like, wow, like out of how many? He was like, oh, it was like 18 of us. But like I'm gold to 12th or something. Like it was just all these jokes that they play off of. And people, I mean, it is annoying to see somebody post like, 12th national rank lifter, et cetera, on the Instagram. It's like, come on, bro. Like 1, 2, or 3.
All right. How about this? I'm going through my Facebook feed, which at this point for me amounts to like an occasional family update, some political nonsense that somebody shares, and then an ongoing never ending scroll of people lifting weights, right? That's my Facebook feed. And that is for most of us. Now, when I go through it a couple of times a year, inevitably I'll see a post that says, I won my session
Sorry.
at insert whatever today. And this was a blog post that I started writing and I never finished it, and I don't know why. But the title of the post and where I was going with it was, is winning the B session a thing?
Well, I'm Young Cho won the B session in Great Britain.
He won the meet. Won what was the Olympics? He won out of a B. But is it something to say that I won the B session today? Because I have an example in my mind.
I'm pretty biased on
and
this
then,
one yes, winning the B session is something cool to say, and you're gonna move up, right after
is
the
it genuine?
A session goes. So you're in the lead right now.
All right. You're in the lead. That's not to say you won it. So here's my hang up.
All right.
If you say that you won something, is there a medal? No, not necessarily. There could be. It happens.
I got a medal.
But no, if you say that you won something,
Nobody
it
else
confers that, right?
There's
Whereas
no other
I do think it is accurate as a descriptor to say you led the B session, or you were the leader coming out of the B, or you
just doesn't
had the
sound as
highest
cool.
total in that group.
I was in the
But you
lead
didn't
until day 2.
win. It doesn't. Isn't that the debate?
Yeah, it does.
It sounds cool. So if you're somebody who's barely lifting body weight, right? and you've made it to an American Open series, and now you're calling yourself a national lifter, a national level lifter, it confers something to somebody. Like you're presenting an implied level of quality and skill and so on that we reserve. I think I reserve in my mind mentally for the top talent in the country. And I ultimately feel like while the American Open series is a really good thing and it is successful, it's not the same. I kind of wish there was another classification. And what it ultimately comes down to with that A session, B session thing is that I think there's a difference between a descriptor and an accolade. If you're competing in the American Open Series by description is a national level event because there's no other way to classify it. But by claiming yourself to be a certain, like a national level lifter, you're now turning that into an accolade. Like you're using that to confer
you're misleading.
Being something that really may not be there. Well, so I think that's the discomfort with it, right? It's not lying, but there's a discomfort for me there when I hear it in some context, because if you look at most of the results, because there's always good sessions and there's a grouping of good lifters, but I think by and large, I feel like the best comparison again is the Arnold. It's a local level meet, or it's a local meet, but it happens to be run as a nationals.
It does sound cool. It just sounds cooler to put yourself in that way, but it is very misleading, and it bothers me too if I go to somebody's like profile on like a gym website and the trainer is basically playing up his accolades that aren't accolades, that are like, oh, I'm top 20th in the nation in weightlifting. Right. To somebody who doesn't know anything about lifting, that sounds really cool. It's only to sound cool. However, sounding cool is winning and working for the USAW.
And I don't want people to think that that's universal. I know that everybody's not saying that. And
but check this out. When you're a gymnast and you're a level 10 gymnast, that means something. The highest level you can go is like level 10 gymnast. I mean, unless you're going like, obviously you're going to be professional after that, but like level 10 gymnasts, because they have a standard, like diving, they have a standard. There's a clear standard of how to execute the move.
They have a standard. There's a clear standard. We had a clear standard of higher qualifying totals for national level events. And now what I think ultimately has happened is you don't have a regional level, right? You don't have a level in between local and national. So you have to call it one or the other. I struggle with it only because I see it more of a manipulation of language, right? But at the same time, I talk about the butt hurt and like, I don't want anybody to think that I'm saying like people haven't earned their way there, that they don't work their butts off, that they may not, most of them may not get beyond that point, and that's okay. And all of it's really good for them because that's part of their personal journey and so on. I'm just saying when you put it out there in a certain way and it makes it look a certain way, to me, I sort of get queasy about it.
And so with the national thing here, it's like they call it that. And so people can say that they're a national, level lifter. However, the people in the know the caliber of the competition, So is there, for example, is there a local or is there a regional competition that is of par with nationals?
Run by the run by our
governing body. Not by our governing body.
No,
like
not by designation.
Something other than like, all right, other than the Arnold.
That carries a level of
like
prestige
a
to
PAC.
it. No, I don't think so.
Right?
No.
What about like out west, right?
But I do think that there are a couple of big meets, like particularly in Northern California, they do have some large meets that are for that area.
State championships across each state.
Not all of them have it. Some have better run than others. Like New York doesn't have one anymore, but we used to, and it was great. I don't know. So I think at the end of the day, I get the AO series. I was reffing one day at the last one in Miami. I was only there for one day, but I got to ref. And even while I was sitting down in the chair, I was like conflicted because on the one hand, I saw a couple of people who they literally didn't know what to do when they got a down signal. Like they were looking back at the coach, like the coach had to tell the lifter to put the weight down. I mean, and it was clear that this was somebody's like first or second meet. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. And then on the flip side, I could see that there were people having genuine fun. And you cannot talk smack about that. Like I got wrapped up in that too. Like, and I got that. So I think I'm only hung up on the whole idea of when people say something that confers something else, it trips me out.
Yeah.
But the concept, I don't dislike at all, actually.
I think if you like weightlifting, it's genuinely a positive like thing that they're doing, like that somebody's doing. Like in this case with competition, then you're gonna enjoy everything about weightlifting. I enjoy everything about weightlifting. I watch documentaries of, I'm scrolling through Instagram before we're setting up a movie night with my wife, and I saw Ilya training heavy, and I was like, oh, we gotta watch this first, 20 minutes, like, cause I love weightlifting. And so I appreciate the fact that, and then I live in another country. So I appreciate the fact that I can watch weightlifting no matter what. I just like to see positivity and the sport growing.
You lifted at the American Open in Orlando last year in 2016 in the B, C.
Oh, you're so nice. I think I was in a D session.
Okay. Are you a national lifter? Are you a national lifter?
Am I a national lifter? Oh man, good question. Because I think, all right, check it out.
Not so easy, is it?
No, I'm not. I mean, if I lift at nationals, I call it nationals. The American Open is a national level competition. So, oh man, that is interesting.
Now, at the time, the series wasn't there yet. I get it. And
see, I thought you were going to ask me. Yes. No, I am a national lifter. I thought you were going to ask me about comparing like years before. Because totals have improved. The totals have improved.
Yes, they have.
Where guys 10 years ago wouldn't have, the medalists wouldn't even have been in top 5.
Okay, so that's where you can turn the light on me, because I've been to 5 or 6 nationals.
Yeah.
And this is where somebody could look at us and be like, well, you just want to hold on to something because it makes you look better.
Yeah.
Honestly, the nationals that I went to, I don't even think the totals that I made would have qualified anymore.
Yeah. Well, how about this? You are a national level lifter when you're a national level lifter. So if you used to be, or you were, or you competed on a national level.
But are we struggling?
I can say that. I've competed on a national level several times.
I'll take that.
And that doesn't, and look, I'm not saying like I'm better than before. Of course today should be better. So I think we can.
And here's where, like, I don't want to look like a hypocrite or sound like a hypocrite, but I would, I think, refer to myself in the past to a national level lifter, because at the time I was able to make it, right? I'm not anymore. I wouldn't call myself that anymore, but I would still call people who make nationals and probably the AO final, probably junior nationals for the most part. I think I would say that they're national caliber lifters. Sure. I mean, but that's me. And I have that old school take on it.
We know, like, all right, think of the Russian Grand Prix, that competition, right? Where they have like 3 men's weight classes and 3 female, like they're all the supers, 85, on up, or 94 on up. Like, is that like a legit level competition to say you're an international level lifter if that's the only one you've ever been to?
That's an IWF drug test. Yeah, that was an Olympic qualification event. That drug, the one that you're referring to specifically in Russia,
the President's
in 2016.
Cup? I think
because they broke it up where the lower bodyweight classes were a Grand Prix in China, and then the heavier one, I think, was the heavyweight classes were in Russia. So it's an IWF event. You lifted internationally. You represented your nation. Sure, I would say that you are an international level lifter if you make it to that meet.
On a polar end, for just age purposes. What about how the youth nationals are broken down? 11 to 13, 35, national champion. 12, like 13 or 14 to 15, national champion. 35.
It's a lot of celebration.
Yeah.
There are a lot of medals. But again, there at youth kids. Nationals.
Encourage them, maybe. I don't know.
But
it's
shouldn't you have to?
What about powerlifting? Come on. Now that
you could be a champion. Yeah.
Drug tested champion? No, I'm a suit
But isn't
champion.
that the problem? Isn't that what you want to avoid?
Yeah.
Because powerlifting is such a rabbit hole.
Yeah.
Are you raw? Are you in a drug tested? Are you in an? It's just so much.
I would say this.
That what you're doing is at a certain point you're celebrating participation.
We can't afford another national competition. We have enough. We have so many local competitions. We talked about the competition boom, and I think we're good. We did enough to jumpstart some attendance at some big meets, because I tell you what, the American Open in 2016 that I just went to versus the American Open, the last time I've been, I think it was 2013, was a huge difference. Like, yes,
in a good way.
Like, the recent one was way better. There's no problem with people. We had standing room only in like B sessions. That's how small like we were in the venue. You know, the platforms are breaking. It wasn't like you get to lift on the 1996, platform that the guys did at the Olympic team. Like, that's amazing nostalgia. Everybody, Eleiko everything. There's not like funny plates in the change-up room. Like, it's legit, or a Rogue. So the caliber of competition has increased. The caliber of the venues and the meet logistics portion themselves have increased. And so it makes sense to have something for everybody, so you can, again, like you said, a gateway to something bigger.
The button on the rambling points that we were making, at least that I take away from it, is that you can call yourself whatever you want, right? If you've earned something, you've earned it. But at the end of the day, be careful of the difference between a description of something, winning the B, leader out of the B, lifting at a national event, versus conferring an accolade, saying that it's an accomplishment in context to something else, right? That's ultimately the place.
Even in CrossFit, I don't like 16th fittest man on the planet. Like, what? Like, what does that mean? I tread of like, look, either what did my man? If you're not first, you're last. Ricky Bobby.
That's hardcore in the other direction, but let's see what the response on commentary like this, because I think we laid it out from both sides. I think I showed where I lean on it. I lean on a space of caution. So do you. But where, what does the weightlifting community think of this? It's to be determined. The point is that participation is there for the AO Series stuff. It's there for the youth nationals. It's there for the universities. And that is not a bad thing. All right. Let's see if we catch heat for this one.